Welcome back to our AI in Healthcare Summit. And right now we'll have Vukosi Sambo talking about AI for operational excellence, its role of CX in optimal healthcare delivery. Who's Vukosi Sambo? Vukosi is the head of data solutions from MedSkim. He is an experienced executive and renowned keynote speaker with extensive experience in healthcare, financial services, FMCG, and market research. He's an expert specialist in data science, AI, and ML digital strategies, cloud computing, and security risk management, actuarial business architecture and operations management. He currently serves as the head of data solutions at Medskim. And I know that we will have a great time in listening to Vukosi Sambo. Over to you, my friend.
Cool. Thanks, Leslie, for that good introduction. I hope I can live up to that good brief of my profile that you spoke to, quite snazzy. Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon. What I will be speaking about today is a bit slightly unconventional, but it does tie into some of the elements that Jacques also mentioned earlier on. So as Leslie mentioned, I'm from the Afrocentric group, MedSkim, and basically we are really one of the largest provider of healthcare currently in the country from an administration, health risk management, and healthcare value chain complementary solution point of view. And our purpose really is to make sure that we're enhancing the quality of life and transforming healthcare in an innovative and meaningful way. And what that really means for us and what really distinguishes Afrocentric from the rest of the providers currently in the private space is that from a vertical integration perspective in terms of the collective health assets that ensure the most comprehensive and most optimal delivery of care to a member, we are the most vertically integrated organization. We are single-eyed, we are playing in the healthcare space, and we are not all over the place. We know what we want and we know what we're trying to achieve in that context. And in terms of our scale, we really look after more than 3.8 million lives. And if you consider this as a percentage of the total number of lives that are covered privately in the South African space right now, which is just around 9 million, it does make us a very significant player with more than a third of the share. But I think if you then spread that from a macroeconomic perspective or at a macro level, what is quite saddening is the fact that that 9 million lives that are covered under private healthcare only represent about 14 million of our population. So I think we can all appreciate the magnitude of the burden that is exerted on the state from a perspective that the balance of that 59 million population, or the 86% balance, has to rely on the state for care. And I think it does beg a question for a key player like ourselves as to what is it that we are doing to aid or to help reduce that burden on the state by improving or enhancing the access to care for our people. And I think that's where we come in and we say we've got this vertical stack that allows us to understand how we can pivot across all the elements that are driving healthcare costs to be able to offer the most optimal and most affordable quality care to our people, and therefore really make the circle bigger. And that is really what makes Afrocentric unique. And with regards to these vertical integrated assets that we have managed to build as a group, with our base obviously being the medical aid admin group, that is the 3.8 million lives that are being administered and managed by MedSkim. What we are able to see, we are able to influence and be able to really achieve as Afrocentric at a larger scale is the ability to really offer a solution that looks at the whole person. If you consider the elements that Jacques was speaking about, the simple and long and short of it for me is that healthcare is complex, and it extends from mental, physiological to all really facets of one's well-being. And we are in a unique position compared to everyone to really have the amount of data that helps us understand the person as a whole and be able to not just understand them as a whole, but to also be able to intervene as a whole, because we've got assets that speak to each of the elements or each of the pillars that are part of that healthcare stake. And that is where, for us, from a data perspective, I want to talk to you about today, to say, what is it that we are doing to understand and exploit the exponential opportunities that we have as Afrocentric and as MedScheme, given the privilege of the kind of data that we have, that we leverage from the vertically integrated combination of healthcare assets to really move the system forward at large and drive affordability and enhanced access to care. And that is for us a big imperative as a business, and we believe that that is what is at the center of being able to transform healthcare in the country. And then moving into the details of really this data that I'm talking about, to add on to it is that generally what you also see is that there's also the service element to how our people engage with our services, with our products, and how we understand that data and how we drive the way in which they behave and engage with our services in a way that will optimize their system and allow us to be able to put the most affordable yet comprehensive offering for our client schemes and ultimately for our members to be able to enhance access. So what you see up there is really just a snapshot really of some of the key data elements that we deal with from our different functional areas. But with this enterprise rich data that we are sitting on, that is unique and different and really speaks to the entire concept of big data, what we are really after, when all is said and done, is all about how do we use this data to enable and simplify how our members interact with healthcare end to end. And this is not just about their physical or mental well-being, but it is also at a service level, how we drive predictable excellence and ensure that people are using the right channel that doesn't frustrate them. We do all know that when it comes to servicing of any kind, people always prefer a path of less resistance. And how are we enabling that in how people access care and how they access us for any services, in the context of them being able to self-service, in a context of them being able to arrive at a channel that will give them a holistic, unified solutioning to their inquiries all the time, because we've got this universe of data that we have managed to unify and virtualize and be able to make it consumable in a nice and easy to understand for our people when they are servicing their members. And the second part that really speaks to the cost element of healthcare, and I mean, I'm not going to really touch today on really the key elements that are driving the cost of healthcare in our country. I think most of us are aware of them and how we are all battling with a healthcare inflation that year after year continues to outpace CPI. But one of the other areas is to say we are firstly trying to make people healthy by helping them make healthier choices and be on a path of wellness. But when they do fall sick, how do we make sure that when they interact with our services, it is in a way that is optimal, it's simplified, and it's as cost effective for them and minimal out-of-pocket expenditure? And what you do see, unfortunately, sitting on the top end of that is the people that are obviously abusers of the system, and how we make sure that we understand through data trends and apply machine learning and AI to be able to pick on those behaviors and start shifting the behavior over time into a way that healthcare is consumed in the most or the most cost-effective manner. And at the point of care, how do we route the right people to the right place so that the entire system is really optimized? That is what we are after. And when they do need to engage with us, how do we make sure that those channels are unified, they embrace the digital ecosystem of the times that we are living in, and be able to provide this predictable excellence customer experience to our members, both from a service and a care point of view, while ensuring that the system is equally optimized for us to be able to continue enabling access to the majority of South Africans. And that is what is at the core, at the center of our AI, ML, data, BI practices as MedScheme and as Afrocentric at large. And that is what we are really after. And we are in a unique position compared to most organizations to be able to focus and influence that entire stack. So you will see that with that data, the key to that customer value management for us is what we call the power of one. Is making sure that we are able to provide this personalized experience to each and every member that we serve or service that has got a product with us, all the way from the care side of things to the service side of things, and making sure that that experience really meets the need of the each and every individual. And that is the power that obviously AI and ML provides us with, to be able to build models that allows us to really personalize, customize, and really offer intelligent nudging to elements of care and elements of service that are going to simplify the experience of the member. That is what our AI, ML, and data practices are all about at MedScheme and at Afrocentric. And really, you'll see that over time, what we are starting to see happen and move is that the entire behavior is really shifting, and we have built this ecosystem, if you would like to call it, from a ML perspective, that helps us understand and be able to flexibly deploy our models from a prediction perspective and do it real time and enhance the models with much speed in terms of the future stores that we have designed from an ML perspective that help us understand the client pulse of each of our client ecosystem. And by the way, this extends beyond just the members, but goes to all our client communities, including the providers themselves. And we now have this rich ecosystem through this rich data that allows us to understand the interaction and the behavior that is driving some of the elements that will help us, or that are helping us contain the cost of healthcare and make it as affordable as ever for the South African population. And that for us obviously speaks to the concept that most of you are familiar with in terms of the analytics maturity practices, and how we are successfully and in a sustainable way designing analytics, ML, and AI solutions that are sustainable. So I won't talk much about that picture that we all know from Gartner, that speaks to the maturity from descriptive to diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive analytics respectively. But what I do really want to touch on here is the how part, from a framework perspective, to say how do we ensure that our AI and ML practices are fit for purpose, and they are sustainable, and they are generating value for the member, for the provider, for us as a business, and all the members of our stakeholder community. And we do that through the concept of systems thinking. And what this really does is that we have managed to create a framework and visibility around how all the elements of our healthcare assets and each of our operation have speak to each other as a value chain and are integrated, and how we ensure that they are designed in a way that keep on improving the system itself. So when you talk systems thinking, there are generally five levels of systems thinking that I'm going to briefly try to explain in the most simplest way to get the point across, and what we're trying to achieve, and how it's key to sustainable AI and ML practices for MedScheme and Afrocentric. Is that if you look at the lowest level of system thinking, you're talking about a non-system, and the best example that I always give when it comes to this is a pile of sand. You remove a grain, you still have a pile of sand, so it's really not really much of a system. And then you get the first level or the second level system that we really just call the base system. And the best example is really your car. You remove a carburetor, you no longer really have a functioning car. And that's where most of the organizations play at the speed, the agility to respond to shocks, be it external and even internal shocks, is very poor. And you generally don't even have a good operationalization of models and predictions that allows you to intervene meaningfully in a scalable way and be able to really make a difference. Where you really want to move to is to start playing in the last three levels, which is the self-correcting, self-organizing, and self-improving system. What the self-correcting system really looks like in terms of an analogy is to think about it like the missile guidance system that uses feedback loops to continue redirecting towards target. And that really is what we're all trying to do. I always say that actually prediction for me is no longer really one of the biggest priorities when we build these models. It is more about learning about the error in the prediction and being able to respond with speed and agility, because then that allows you to really lift into that layer of prescription, because the prediction will not always be right, and there are always a lot of external factors and disruptions that happen on our day-to-day lives. And the whole idea is to say how agile and how responsive is your system to be able to self-correct all the time, to be able to adjust every time as much as possible back to their target. And in that case, you own your destiny. You become predictable in your excellent delivery of care and services. So that is what really we are after. And there are characteristics of how we are using information and feedback loops to drive that continually in our operational environments and also in our care environment. And that moves us to a space where we call self-organizing system, to say as we do these self-correcting and self-improving elements within our system, you start seeing a system learning from itself. And I mean, in AI and ML concept, most of you will refer to this as a supervised learning. But this concept, it really is much broader than that. But it's to say, how do you design a system that optimizes itself over time, but by just automatically organizing itself? And that is what we really are after in terms of how we understand the disease burden, the medicine delivery model, the primary care delivery model, the service model itself. And those are the models that we are building and are implementing at Afrocentric to really drive a holistic end-to-end service offering for our members and our clients and the rest of our stakeholder community. And obviously, to be able to do that, you do need to really make sure that you are able to scale this, as we are seeing a continued exponential rise in the amount of data that we are collecting and having to deal with and processing and trying to understand. So how you architecture your ML and AI is quite key to us, and I think this picture really speaks to how robust that blueprint is for us, and how it has really helped unlock, or is helping unlock continued value in how we are quickly building and quickly deploying models that help us understand care and service. And this is really a living document that will continually, obviously, evolve and embed all modern technologies as we do our research from an data science perspective to continue understanding how we can enable our stakeholders. So with all of this said, obviously, I'm a data practitioner, so I was never really gonna not go back to some of the boring stuff that most of you in this forum may not be very interested in generally, is that data management remains key. So smart architecture and the kind of ecosystem that you create from a platform perspective in how you really understand your data sources and how you connect them and create what we call a virtual layer that allows you to really apply your data management practices effectively so that you drive obviously better data quality that the business can trust and leverage insights and foresight from to be able to make reliable and continually improving decisions is quite key for us. So just to close off with the point that really for us, data management remains very key to how we really achieve all of this. And the combination of that and the architecture in the previous slide from an ML and AI blueprint has been very, very useful in helping us drive the best of the best in terms of the cost containment of care and also the service experience, and also leveraging the power that as an organization we have through our vertically integrated health assets. So I will really stop there, take any questions and comments, and you can also obviously reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll also put my details if you want to connect with me over email to understand more how as Afrocentric and MedScheme are driving better and more enhanced advanced analytics in our environment to enable business and access to care for the greater society.
Oh, thank you so much, Vukosi Sambo, for that well executed presentation. We really appreciate.
Thank you so much, Leslie. Thank you so much.
No, it's a
pleasure.
pleasure. It's a pleasure. I don't see any questions on the chat here. All right, I just checked. I don't see any questions. Yes, let's see. No, there are no questions at the moment. And Vukosi will be with us. If you have any questions, you can utilize the chat and he will respond to all those questions that you're having. But thank you so much, especially when you spoke about that personalized smart health and service experience that we can really encounter when we come to MedScheme, and also about how to maintain that sustainable AI on how the system can self-correct and self-improve. Really, that was mouthful. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. And we shall move to our next session. At the moment, we shall take a break. And we have Joel Uborogo coming next. Don't miss the next session. We'll be back in a few minutes.